folks, and welcome to the next chapter in Aging Now What? I am Ignacio, President of North Star Senior Advisors.
And I'm Jessica Branning, CEO and founder of ClinCloud Clinical Trials.
And before we start this podcast, I do want to mention we now have our mugs.
Yes.
So cheers.
Cheers.
Yes, we're very excited to have this podcast here for you guys. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about what is clinical research all about. As I met Jessica years ago, I got to know a little bit more about what research was all about, ClinCloud specifically, and a lot of folks really just don't know the benefits of clinical research. So first question, why should somebody participate in clinical research?
So big topics, this is a big topic we get all the time at our clinic, and there's really two reasons. Number one, it's no cost for anybody to participate in a clinical research trial, and there's no insurance involved. So you can get a very comprehensive workup done to better understand what might be going on with your health, in particular a specific disease that you might be recently diagnosed or potentially at risk for. And clinical trials can help to provide that foundation, again, at no cost and no insurance is involved. And number two is really an altruistic push, right? Everybody who's participating in a clinical research trial is volunteering their time for us to better understand how we can advance medicine as a whole, especially for chronic conditions like Alzheimer's disease and fatty liver that really don't have cures, don't have great treatments, and really don't have great diagnostic workups done. So that's the two big reasons why a lot of the times people look at participating in a clinical trial.
And the first reason, and I think it's a great reason, is that, typically folks need to be diagnosed, they need to be approved for a test or an exam, insurance has to be involved, they have to have authorization. So that's excellent that you don't have to go through that process, right? Once you're part of the research.
Yeah, once you're part of it. Now, during the process, if you don't continue to meet eligibility for the clinical trial, you might not be able to further continue on. However, just getting that fundamental coming in, some blood work, EKG, talking to the doctor, that's great information to just be able to gather when you come in.
Got it. So when folks do consider participating in the research, what are some benefits and risks for them to think about potentially, right? Because most people think, well, guinea pig, right?
Yeah.
That comes to mind. So as they consider the pros and cons of being involved in the research, what would you say they should think about?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the number one benefits are all of the procedures and the diagnostic workup that you can get done. Typically, when somebody is considering wanting to participate in a trial, the benefits that we always go over is, number one, you come in, we're going to educate you thoroughly on the disease itself so you can better understand what's going on. Then we're going to do clinical workup with you, so you're getting EKGs, lab work done, possibly even some imaging completed too. And that itself is a huge benefit because you're learning more about what's going on. And then we can share that information, some of it, not all of it, to your doctor too. So there's this cohesive continuity of your care as you're beginning the process. And then the other benefit is you might receive treatment that is slowing down the progression of the disease or even reversing the effects depending on what condition there is.
Very interesting.
And the risk, though, is this is potentially a new treatment that is not approved by the FDA. So there might be some side effects that we're learning or continuing to learn about. However, we always have your safety and well-being at the forefront as you're going through this process. So there's pros and there's cons, but just like if you listen to a medication, on a commercial, they list out all of those side effects. And that's part of what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand, is this going to be a safe treatment or diagnostic that's going to be beneficial for the greater good for those that are living with certain conditions.
Good. And I think that's really good to point out that there could potentially be some collaboration with their PCP or their physician as you go through the study, and you can share that information potentially so there's that continuity of care, right?
Exactly.
So it doesn't stop with you guys necessarily. And I think that's also really good to point out the potential complications and all that. And I'm assuming there's precautions
Absolutely.
in place, just in case people may be wondering, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And that's part of the reason why in a clinical trial, I consider this a benefit too, is there's more frequency as well when you are coming into the clinic. So it's not like you go to your PCP, come back in a year. You're basically coming in, once a month, sometimes once every other month, so that we are monitoring what's going on. The doctor's seeing you. We're taking into account any changes in your medical history, medications that you might be taking. Are you having any side effects? So we can document again. So there's appropriate oversight in your care in the clinical trial.
Excellent. Good. So who should participate in a study?
Everybody. No. So I do think that anybody who has the opportunity to participate in a clinical research study should always consider it. At ClinCloud, I'll give two predominant examples. We focus on Alzheimer's disease and fatty liver disease in particular. We have other clinical trials there too, but the main reasons why we are encouraging people to participate in our Alzheimer's disease studies in particular is, number one, there's not enough participants. We still don't have a fantastic treatment that's going to slow down the progression, and the rise of this condition is increasing with every year and further causing complications to individuals living with the disease and their family members as well. So we really need volunteers to come in and participate in our Alzheimer's disease clinical trial so we can better understand what is going on with that condition. And that's for those that are not even experiencing memory loss to those that already have a diagnosis. So we have clinical trials for that wide range. And then for fatty liver, this is a silent epidemic that's really going on to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, where a lot of people are living with this condition, have no idea that they have it until their liver goes into cirrhosis and they need a liver transplant. So by being able to come in, understand if you're at risk for these conditions, potentially receive some new treatments is always going to be really beneficial. So anybody who's able to come in and participate in a clinical trial, I always highly encourage it.
Okay. And so if somebody is thinking about participating, or maybe sometimes as a husband or wife, maybe for their spouse, right? How should individuals learn about participating if it's right for them?
Yeah.
How can they empower themselves through education that way?
Yeah. So one of the things that we always do for anybody, so it's not like you come in, you're automatically going to be starting in a clinical trial. We have a health consult, if you will, where people come in so they can start learning about clinical trials so that they can make a sound decision with their family, themselves, and their healthcare providers to say, is this the right opportunity for me? So typically with that visit, we invite individuals in, we do preliminary overview of their medical history, review medications, and then we might perform a few assessments with them. Maybe it's a memory assessment, or maybe if they're coming in for fatty liver, we'll do an ultrasound of their liver to see if they even have preliminary qualifications to consider a clinical trial. That visit usually takes anywhere between 30 minutes to 60 minutes, just so we can better understand if this is the right fit for you. So, and that doesn't tie you into any participation in a clinical trial. It's just information that you can gather to see if this is a right opportunity for you.
Good. So some people may wonder, well, how come my doctor doesn't do this? Why do I have to go somewhere else to do this? And we mentioned how there's potential collaboration between the research and the physicians. But if they're wondering, why can't my doctor do this for me? What would you say?
I think honestly the biggest thing is when you go to see your doctor has a laundry list of things that they need to go through to help see your overall health. In particular, when we're starting to consider clinical research, it's almost like going to see a specialist, right? So your PCP sends you to a cardiologist because they specifically might see something that's going on with your heart, and then your heart doctors going to take care of your heart. Well, your PCP will refer you potentially to a clinical research facility like ClinCloud because there's a new clinical research opportunity, and we become your specialist that's only focusing on your care within that clinical trial. And PCPs and your general practitioners, again, they're looking at all different types of complications that might be going on and taking care of your healthcare in particular, and time and resources might not always be available at each one of those practices. So by coming to a facility like us, we can focus predominantly on just that research care because again, it's not necessarily feasible at all.
Yeah, it's hyper-focused, it's specialized.
Yes.
Yeah. As you were talking, I thought about a question. If I'm a patient, right, I'm probably wondering, well, do I need a referral to go to ClinCloud? Do I need my primary physician to refer me to ClinCloud? And the answer sounds like it's no, right?
No.
They can just walk in and go about getting the education, potentially be part of the study without the PCP referring, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
You do not need a referral.
Okay. So what are the types of different types of clinical research? How can folks find these? Are they on your website? And how can they find out if they can potentially benefit from a specific research?
Yeah, always going to our website is a really great resource so that you can learn whether or not clinical research could be a good opportunity for you. There are different types of clinical trials. In particular, there's different phases of clinical research. So there's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. Phase 1 is typically first in human clinical trial. So we've kind of looked at a medication and it looks like it would be feasible for us to continue. Typically, it's on a smaller group of individuals and a healthy group of individuals. Then we move into phase 2, where it's going to be tested on a larger number of individuals, and maybe we're looking at the different dosage of a potential medication. So we're seeing what makes the most sense. Once we've identified, what the right dose is, then we go into phase 3 and we expand the pool to more individuals that are potentially receiving this medication against placebo most of the time. Okay. And once we've gathered all of that information, that's when it can go to the FDA, and the FDA will say yes or no to this new potential treatment. And then it goes into phase 4, which is we're going to continue to observe following FDA approval. So I say that because a lot of the times when people are considering what's a good clinical trial for me, they might not want to do a phase 1 because it's the first time we're really looking at it, and we need to understand what the side effects are. A lot of the times people might focus more on a phase 2 or phase 3 because at that point in time, we have a general understanding of the safety of the medication, and we have a general understanding of what the side effects would be. They're the two phases that we predominantly at ClinCloud focus our attentions on, but it is something to always consider, and understanding that when you're considering a clinical research trial is always really important.
That's really good to know. So if an individual gets involved in a clinical research study, they don't have to ride all the phases, correct? Can they select which phase they want to be part of?
They can't necessarily select what phase they want to be a part of. So when they come to a facility, we already have a list of clinical trials. Okay. So you have to, the treatment or the study has to go through phase 1 before it's then considered to move into phase 2.
Got it.
And then if it passes phase 2, that's when we move into phase 3 at that point. So you can't really pick the phase, but it is something to consider when a clinical trial opportunity is being presented to you. You always want to ask, what phase of the clinical trial are we in?
Got it. Okay, good. Well, I've learned a whole lot here. Thank you for this information, Jessica. Folks, again, Jessica Branning with ClinCloud. Highly encourage you to check out the website, which is?
It's www.clincloudresearch.com.
And there you'll find everything they do, the studies that they're doing. So if you want to participate, I highly encourage you to give them a call.
Yep, sounds great.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.